Huh, strange. Well, that's fine. Hey folks, we're gonna try this again, see if the internet survives this time. My expectations are low, so we'll see. Yeah, the plan is still, as last time, to set up the placement work and then saving and loading. And I'm just checking and making sure. Okay, so compressor stuff still safe. Some of my stream settings is safe. And if you're curious about the music in the background, that is Breath of Fire 4. So, where were we? Right. We had set up just a quick if statement. If we are not currently editing terrain, then just don't do any of the rest of this stuff. We got the hit getting initialized, although it's empty. Raycast. The raycast comes from the mouse position, and the reason for that is I'll tab here. The way this will work is we will click the screen. Oh gosh, gotta wait for this whole thing to catch up. Oh good. Okay. So we click the screen. Oh right. So hold on. I get to show you. So it's actually working right. It's just that we need to set this to edit terrain. Now, yes, okay. So if you click anywhere else, doesn't really matter, but if you click on the actual cube, you can drag it around. But as I said in the previous tiny stream, is that we don't want it to necessarily be click and hold. We want it to be click once. I guess technically click and hold works on the phone too, because you'd be dragging your finger. Well, I guess we'll potentially leave it then. Not a big deal either way. That is not the right location. Where are you? Too many icons. But regardless, the way it works is it checks to see if we have an object selected already. If we don't, then it'll do a raycast to see if there's any clickable object where you just touched. If there is, we'll assign it, and then we'll return out. And then in the next frame, we are also, just to note, this is checking whether or not you're holding down the mouse button. We would also do a check for click on a phone. Now, if there's an object, next time it comes around, it'll raycast to see if it hits the ground instead of the actual clickable object. And we could probably change that to say clickable mask or something. We'll do that later though. So you'll... Oh, in fact, I'm gonna go see this real quick. There's something I was dealing with at work. Okay, I'll have to remember that for later. Because that is... Yes, okay. Oh, but this is newer... A newer version of Unity. I'm pretty sure 2018 doesn't let you see layer masks on the inspector. I'll have to double check later. But regardless, yeah, so we are taking that mouse position. We can actually get rid of this line because what we were doing with it, we're not going to be doing anymore. So we have the position, which is going to get rid of this as well. We don't need that anymore. Basically, we just... we're not even rounding to the nearest int right now. We're actually just cutting off the decimal entirely, which is probably why it feels a little choppy. So we could probably do, instead of this, what is it, mathf.round to int it.point.x. So we're just gonna say int rounded x equals this. And we're gonna do the old copy and paste. Rounded y, rounded c, x, y, and z. My thought process here is that when you're, let's say you're at 3.9, by just converting it to an int, then you have the issue of it going all the way down to 3. But if you're rounding to the nearest location, then did I get them all? Yeah. So if you're rounding to the nearest location, then instead of it snapping all the way down to 3, it'll snap to 4, which I think would be more natural for the end user. So we're gonna get an error here in a moment, just because I was editing while it was running. Oh, thought we were, but apparently I have not been keeping up with modern Unity. That's fine. There's been so many updates lately. So now, oh yeah, that feels a lot better. You can't tell, but yeah, previously you'd be moving it this way and it would still be here for way too long, but now, much nicer. Release it. So that'll be good. Now you may have noticed that the editing state stayed at edit terrain. Later we will have the game controller on start set the state to dummy or something like that until you press play. Okay, so that's fine. So what we're doing is right now we're setting the position here through just a simple transform adjustment. But that's not necessarily how I want to do it. What I want to do instead is I want to send an event that is requesting to place the object in that spot. So what we're going to do is we have this vector3 that we're already generating. And we'll just say vector3 int location equals this. That should be fine. And we're going to get rid of this line. Oh, what do you oh, all right. Vector3 int. And then we are going to fire off a game event. We just need to actually make it. And we will call this on... What did we call those things? On move thing. Or do we need move thing or just place thing? Yes, on move thing. And then private game event on place thing. Okay. Alright, and I don't know if we can do null for all these things, but you don't have to, no? Won't be able to do it for those? Okay, well, we'll go down like that, but for these ones you can. I just like assigning, even if it's going to be null. They default to that anyways, unless you have a default set in the actual class itself. So it's totally just a visual quirk. But, yes. So now here, we're going to say on move thing, raise location. And in fact, now that I'm thinking about that, currently on the map, what we are passing through is the object that is moving. So it's not actually what we want to do here. What we'd want to do instead... He's thinking. So obviously what would be getting passed through is the... We could pass through a class or an object that is the moving object as well as the position. And that gets you all the data that you need. Alternatively, we could just pass through the object and store the current position in... Yeah. Right. That makes a lot of sense. Because what this is doing is this is not actually moving it, it is determining whether or not the object is going to have like a red line or a green line or anything like that beneath it, just any sort of visual quirks. So in fact, I think this is still happening here. So we don't actually need to truncate it up here, we can just do it down here. What we are passing through instead... Whoa, did not mean to go that far up. What we are passing through instead is the object that is moving. Awesome. Okay, so then that object will get passed through. Over here, we should see it here, so we're going to say debug.log checking, just to see if it actually fires properly, which it should. But generally, if you assume something's going to work, then it probably won't. That's just how life works out. Let's see. Okay. Events on move thing. And we'll just duplicate that. On place thing. Or did I say on plop thing? I forget. Yeah, we just went place thing. Okay. Move thing, place thing. Okay. And this will be set in game. So in theory, what we're missing now is on the map. Event listener. Move thing. Alright. Oh! That's not what you want to see. So it is ploppable. So let's do a little bit of debugging here. Debug.log type of value. Whoa! Oh, right. I'm doing this wrong. Value.type of get type. So let's see what it thinks it is. I'm guessing it's going to say that it is a game object, and game object is not the class that we want. Yes, okay, so that's all it is. Is that what's happening is we are sending through the game object, which is well and good, but what we actually need is the component on the game object, which is the, we'll say, ploppable. Does that work for us? It does. Okay. So this should actually work. Normally you would want to do this sort of stuff on every frame, but it's on a single object that you physically are interacting with, so it's... Okay, there we are. So in theory, we go back over to the map. Tile.go.inform.position. Let's print that out. What? Oh, yes, you are right. It actually, this, I have it listed as a building, but it is actually not a building. Right. So, kind of want to just rename this. Let's see. It does have a generator on it because it was at one point actually a building. It was for the hand. But now it's currently a tile. Okay, well, let's remake it. We'll duplicate it. Move this down here. This guy, we'll just turn him off for now. Just keep it simple. So now we have our terrain piece. Terrain. And it's obviously got the cube inside of it. It uses the terrain mask, which is correct. It is not a building. It is actually going to be a new... do we want to call it map tile or map cube? Let's go with map cube or map block. Cube's a fun word. Map piece? Yeah. Names are much less critical than they seem, but that's always like the hardest part to me. Open that up. Ploppable. And we will say implement the interface. Now it's got all the things it'll need for later. The type, we're going to adjust get Private, hide poppable. Dummy. Although technically, I guess we already know that it's going to be terrain, so. Get, return, type. And then for go, our game object, we just say get, return, game object. Okay, and we don't need to worry about lift and plop yet because those aren't actually implemented, so throwing the not implemented error is probably fine. I'm just that good. Okay. So we've got our type, our... whoops. Kind of forgot you can drag things. We've got our type, our object. We go back to the window. We wait for it to compile, which I feel like is getting slower and slower. But I know there's also something they did recently to make the recompiling process like safer or some nonsense. I don't remember it well enough to give you any details on that, but let's get rid of this. So now we've got our terrain cube. We're gonna try it out real quick. Make sure it actually still works. Cool. And if you look down there in the debugs, which will be a little hard for you right now because I'm hiding it, but you can see that we're getting obviously the map piece message, which is less important, but we are seeing, you know, -2, 0, and 1. If we go look here, -2, 0, 1. That's being set before it is sent in the event system. And we're going to want to make a note that move the object before sending the move event, which makes sense because we've moved it and now we're saying that, you know, on that move we need other things to react. And then we go over to the map, and what's going to happen in the map is we might as well make a section here, private void check space during move. Again, you can rename this at any point, doesn't actually matter. And check space during move. We need to send something through that. So what we're going to send through is the tile. And ploppable tile. There you go. Okay. And what we're going to check is this world map. So we're going to say vector to int, I think is what we're looking at up there. Yes. Vector to int pos, which is just short for position. You could just write position if you wanted. Is a tile.go.position transform.position. So this now returns, it actually is returning a vector 3, which I think is going to complain about. Yes. So let's and it's still going to complain because it's going to say those are floats instead of ints, but we can just go in here and do this. We're just casting them to ints again. Given the amount of times this is going to be happening, it's negligible. Doesn't matter at all. It's going to complain here that we are not using this yet. It's a little impatient. I mean, I just wrote it. You could calm down, Visual Studio. But so now we have the position. This is our key in a key value pair, which is what this dictionary is. And we're going to say if world map.contains key debug.log space taken. And if it doesn't contain the key, we're going to say debug.log space free. Now down here in the place things section, we need to do something similar, but we need to actually add the cube to the dictionary because otherwise they're invisible to each other, right? So we've got check space during move, public void attempt placement. Now this actually brings up an interesting bit of code because what needs to happen is when it places this, so what our issue is that this input controller currently has the test object just sitting on it. We're actually going to want to put that test object inside of, say, our game data or some other object. And this allows these two things to communicate without actually having references to each other. So we'll take care of that in a moment. But what's going to happen is, if it can be placed, it's going to set that test field to null. And if it can't be placed, it's just going to not do that. And so what happens is, in the input controller, when we do this mouse button up, that's going to be trying to do the placement. So down here is where onPlaceThing.raise is going to happen. On PlaceThing.raise, we're going to send that object through. And we're going to get rid of this line real quick. And what's going to happen is, if it succeeds in the map, the test object, which we'll rename later, this object will get cleared out. In fact, do we want to just make a scriptable object that simply holds a ploppable in it? That's a fantastic question. We won't do it for now. I think I'll just slip it into game data. It's a little tacky, but I don't have anything in there anyway, so we'll just call it public ploppable. The more I use that word, the less it looks real, but that's, I mean, in a way it isn't real, I think, but yeah. Okay, so we can go over here. We have game data in the input controller. So we're going to actually get rid of this line, and we're going to say game data.current ploppable. Oh yes, and in game data we want to default that to null. So in the input controller, we're now going to do that. Ah, yes, that makes sense. So go. That's going to be saying, no, they're not going to want to, okay. Only read only. Oh, yes, this makes sense. It.transform.parent. Game object.get component. Ploppable. There we are. And then if it is not null, do this. And then down here, we can always shorthand this too. We won't for now, but we could. And then we actually don't need to pass anything through these now. And the reason for that is our map should have, it doesn't yet, but we can pass the, so basically what's happening is we say this thing has happened, and then this class is like, oh, that happened. Okay, I'll check our shared data, which is this scriptable object, and see what I'm working with here. So we can get rid of this, get rid of this. That's actually fine for now. But we'll get rid of that. And we will say, oh, I went to reference. Game data.current. Game data. Oh my goodness, it keeps trying to get to the actual object instead of thing. Okay. Pass that through. We'll just do it like that. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Down here, we'll do the same thing. And we actually don't need to be casting it anymore because it already is what it is. Okay. And so what we're going to say here is on attempt placement, place thing to rain, we are I keep glancing at my microphone from time to time because my headphones are actually picking up a ground loop. And like, oh, I hope it's not being recorded, but it isn't, so I'm fine. Okay. Attempt placement. As before, we're passing the tile through. Again, don't necessarily need to, but I've already started doing it, so here we are. We've got our key, which we could actually make a reference on the ploppable itself, or the object itself, where it has this data and we just call it the key, something like that. Maybe later. A big danger is having too much fun trying to like over-engineer things. And it usually becomes sort of a downward spiral of doom. Okay. So again, if the space is taken, then we'll do nothing. If the space is not taken, then we will say game data dot current ploppable equals null. And then we will, well, actually before that, we will go into the map dot add, oh, what did we call it? World map? World map. World map dot add. And we're going to add at this position, this object. So now in the dictionary, this will be added. And then we'll clear out the thing. So then on the input controller, it will no longer see the object. So it won't be trying to move it around anymore. Let's see. Okay, that's added. That's added. So now we just need 2 of them. Okay. So we're going to stop running because we actually have to fix a few things on our scripts. The map, we need to have 2 game event listeners. And now we go down to here, move thing, and then on place thing. Okay. Save that. Game data's empty, so we want to populate that. I'm saving again, not that I need to, but force a habit. Let's see, what's complaining here? You are correct, it's not currently being used. That's fine. Clear that out. And as I said, we need 2 cubes. So we're going to duplicate this one, and we're going to move it over 1. Now, we're going to have to move both of them in order for this test example to work, because when this first loads, they're not going to have any positional data. We could fix that by having them place themselves on start, but I'm a little concerned that that would be a shorthand fix that later would really screw me. So we'll move this one around. Space is free. Notice it's saying everywhere the space is free, and we'll release. Clear that out. Now here, oh, yeah, grab it. So it's saying that this space is taken because when we picked it up, we didn't clear out those spaces. Now similarly, it's going to say this was taken. It does. Okay, so we need to fix that. So let's go back into our input controller. Map. So when the thing is moved, yes, that makes sense. You would have 3 states: lifting, moving, and dropping. So we actually are missing our public void lift thing. Oopsie poopsie. So we're actually just going to go in here and we're going to say remove tile from map. Public void. Doesn't actually need a public. Private. Private void. We're going to say that tile. Need this function. No sooner did I do that. All right. and then we're going to say, again, we need this if statement down here. Because, well, actually, technically, I guess it has to exist. No, not because it's debugging. That's fine. And again, we can clean this sort of stuff up later. Like, you want to make it work first, and then go back through and see how you can iterate on it. Okay, so if the map contains the key, world map dot remove, and if it doesn't, then we'll just do nothing, because that'll tell us that it's one of our debug tiles, which is fine. So lift thing, and that'll lift it. And then we go back over to the input controller, and here's where we're lifting it. So after we assign it, we will... One more. On a lift thing. And these events actually provide us with other useful tools. So we could have clips play whenever, like when you click to lift something, we could have like a boop kind of sound or something like that, or like a bell sound. I don't know. It could be different for each kind of object. Like, you know, you'd be able to trigger different noises for different things so that you have more dynamic flow. Because that's a big thing I find when working on this stuff, is that having noises associated with your work, even when you're in the very early stages of finishing something, it makes it feel way more complete. When you're just working in silence, it always feels like it's not nearly as good. So, something to consider. So we'll raise that. Okay. So that's good. And because of this return, we will actually we will cycle one frame before we do any of this stuff, so we don't even have to worry about race conditions. Okay. Now we need to actually make that object and assign it. Okay, inputs go down on lift thing. So that's going to start firing now. Lift, move, place. That looks good. So we lift, we move, we place. Not that you need returns at the very end, but what can you do? You know, sometimes you just write things out. So when we lift, it will find it here, check here. In fact, this switch will probably be changing later, so what would happen is you would just call this, and then here you'd have a switch to figure out which of the dictionaries you'll be going through. So, let's give it a try. So we pick it up, drop it. We'll collapse our debugs to see. Okay. So these are from the two different things. I should have probably named them a bit differently, but I'll grab this one. So it thinks this space is taken. That's clear, so... Oh, interesting. It's not moving it. Okay. So... Space taken. That almost sounds like Chocobo music, but this is still... Yeah, it's still Breath of Fire 4. Interesting. So it lifts, assigns and lifts. Landmask. And the landmask is... Ah... All right, we need to do some work here. So we have world floor. Actually, that's fine. So we got terrain, map tile, and then buildings. So that's what we got going. Whoops. Map piece. Building piece sounds dumb. We can rename these at any time, thankfully. So we go up to input, and our landmask is terrain. Our clickable object is map piece. We'll go back and look. Okay, so then it lists, goes up, comes back around, sees that it's not null. Okay. We click anywhere around here. Oh. Oh, our game data, I bet, is not clearing this object when the scene ends. Or no, it must be, because then this wouldn't be null. Interesting. Thinking. Okay. And where was it failing? It was failing on placing. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes a ton of sense, actually. Kind of forgot this actually changed to be doing something. Okay, space free, move it around. Give it a drop. Space was free, so that's fine. There's out. Grab this one. Space free. Oh, space taken. So what we're going to want to do in a moment... Okay, so that's at least right. What is going wrong? First things first, we're going to want to go into the map. And we're going to actually want to adjust this so that it tells us the position, the space that's taken, because actually knowing that would be useful. And then up here, so we'll say down here, placing. And then up here, let's copy that line just to save us some time. Moving. Okay. Do. Okay. So from here, we should be able to figure out where our logic breaks down. Okay, so we're all cleared out. We'll turn off the collapsing for now. Oh, interesting. So I think what's happening is I'm clicking out here, and then when I click in here, we're getting issues. Yes. That's the problem. Okay. So that wouldn't be a problem for normal people. Let's try it. We'll click in the scene, and then we'll get to work. Okay. So we move it around. 1, 2, 3. Oh, interesting. Oh, is that my Z? Oh. Y is currently up rather than... Oh. Well then, okay. They went and they bamboozled me. And by they, I mean me. That's how it goes. You think you get it, and then you don't. There we are. And we release. All right, and we'll grab this other one. Oh, I did it again. Okay, it doesn't say any of those are taken. Taken! Free! Free! Taken! Free! Taken! Free! Ho! And we grab this one. Ah, darn. Its space didn't get freed. So what's happening here is on the lift... Space cleared. Okay. So we will... Oh, right. And because... No, we're still good. Never mind. Thinking too far ahead. So nothing's taken. Nice. Drop it down. Pick up this one. Move it around. As we see, it is taken if they go over the same spot. And then we'll place it right here. Cleared out. Look on the screen. So now we need to collapse. As we can see, it never did the... Ah, I forgot to hook up the listener. Yeah, that's why you put in debug logs. And I'll just organize these to be in order. We'll eventually make that nicer, smaller. But not for now. Okay. Looking good. If we uncollapse, we'll get back in here. Looking good. Taken, not taken, taken, not taken. Okay. We'll turn off Visual Studio for a moment so you can enjoy the wonderful debug logs with me. Move it around. Free. Taken. Free. Move this one up over here. We drag it around. None of these are taken. And we go up here. We're like, hey, buddy, I want to be your friend. Oh, but you're already taken. Okay, well. That's fine, I guess. Nice. Yes. Okay. And even more fun, we wanted... scriptable. Turn back on Visual Studio. Is that not what it is? Oh, serializable. Serializable. Serialized? Ah, see, there we are. With enough work, you too can remember the name of somebody else's class. One cool thing about this, although it's going to complain to me in the window in a second, is... yeah, it's like, I know what I'm about. We can now see the dictionary. Eh? Yes. So we can come in here and we can drag this over, drop it, and now we can see the key and the value. The danger with these things is that you can do serialization in ways that Unity wasn't expecting and then make yourself really sad. But if you're just using it for debugging, perfectly fine. So now we see this one here. We'll pick it up. We removed it from the list. Well, from the dictionary. Sorry. Pop it down. Right back. Chef's kiss. Okay. And as I said before, I really like being able to basically consolidate my debug messages. So we're going to say private debug mess string message. And we need void. We'll need a boolean up here. So we'll say private bool debugging. We'll put it to false by default. We're going to serialize it so that we can see it in the inspector. And then we're going to say if debugging debug.log message. And then for these bits, instead of putting debug.log like this, we're just going to say debug mess. And if you were a evil monster person, you could make a static function to do this all over the place. But then Santa wouldn't bring you presents, so don't do that. All right, so now we'll hide Visual Studio real quick. Over here, we'll give it a clicky. And as we can see, one object in the dictionary, no debug messages. If we flip that on, whoops, now we do get debug messages. So it allows us to still be verbose without making the console completely useless. Okay, that takes care of that. So now we need a new object. Create empty. We'll call this our save load. Save and load. I sometimes just call it IO to sound really fancy and cool, but not today. Although, frankly, I think... Do I want to just call it IO? We're just going to go save and load. Because you'll always remember what it does. It'll never surprise you. And this also will bring up a point that we actually need to prefab this object and have it in a scriptable object somewhere that we can put on the save and load, because we'll need to be able to tell it what to save and what to load, right? Pretty simple. In fact, this world map probably needs to go on to game data if we're being honest here. So, or at least we would make a map data. Sure. Nah. We can move it later. And by that I mean we can move it to something other than game data later. What nobody else knows can't hurt them. And you know, that kind of feels right? Game data.world map. Just, it warms your heart. Sure. So now, any other errors? No. Wow. It's not often you refactor something and it immediately works. Okay. Public void save. Public void load. Ooh, how exciting. And then we're going to do a private void update, which I know was just there and I deleted it, but whatever. If input.get key down, keycode.shift, left shift, and input.get key down, keycode.s, save. Because when am I ever going to want a capital S? No. And L. Alternatively, another way you could do this is just make a couple buttons. Maybe that's what we'll do, so that every time I'm talking about salt or something, it doesn't save. Yeah, so saving, loading, private, game data. Method equal now. So for saving, what we want to do, so game data is not going to persist for people who are playing in a client, like a compiled version of this game. It only persists for us in the inspector, for better or worse. So what we need to do is we need to save a serialized version of this. And there's some things to remember with JSONs and serialization. Generally speaking, if you can't see it in the inspector window, you cannot serialize it. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to use the... Well, that's just a weird song. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Anything with weird lyrics is going to throw me off. That's better. Okay. So we're going to say to JSON, and we're just going to pump the game data through real quick. And we're going to see what it looks like, because that will create a string, a JSON string. And if it's perfect right out of the box, all the better for it, really. Whoops, we forgot to put the game data on. So let's move these guys a little bit. Make sure they did something. Oh, right. It's over here now. But it is not serialized. Right. Gotcha. Okay. That's fine. So we are going to hit save. And as we can see, if I move Visual Studio the other way, we can see that the state saved, but the dictionary containing all of the map tiles did not. So now we have to ask ourselves how we want to handle that. We could continue to use a dictionary, or we could create a just a simple list and use link queries, or LANQ, whatever people call them. Use those to check if a particular tile exists, which again would be slower, but it's just a single object, so alternatively, we could just create a save and load flow, because basically what we could do is we've got, let's say, private... Oh, whoops, let me turn on the private... or actually, it'll be a public class. Public save data. Yeah, we don't need that. I don't think. Oh, I was wrong. Could be a struct, even. Whatever floats your boat, frankly. And from here, we could have a synced up list of vector2s and objects. So for your map, you'd have a public class map save. And in that, you would have a public vector2 int position and public ploppable map tile. And then from there, we could also do public map save to int position map tile. This dot position equals position, and this will make sense in a moment, or it won't. We'll see. It's the only options you got, and you can create a list of this class. Oh, you know, we don't even need to do this work. Let's just do this in game data, right? So our world map, public class map, and a map would consist of a public list class piece. That's public vector to int. I don't know why I didn't just copy my work just now over, but click on a ploppable piece. Not usually good to use a variable that's got the same name as the so we'll just do ploppable. And then what this is making is a constructor that basically just allows us to quickly populate the entries as we're making them. And then in this context, the use of the word this is just saying the thing that's calling the function. So this dot position is this position, and then this one is the one that's being passed through. You don't have to do it this way. You could just rename these so you don't have to remember that. I like doing it though. I don't know why. I genuinely couldn't tell you. Pieces equals new list. So now we have this object, this map, that is full of pieces, map pieces. And so we'll go down here and we'll say public. Oh yeah. And then go down here, and that should make, whoops, serializable, system.serializable. Public map, and then that's a world map, and a world map is a new map. Now we're gonna have some errors that we'll have to go sort out in other files, but that's totally fine. Mostly in the input controller, frankly, or map rather. So down here, we're gonna say if world map dot pieces dot, if we can find a piece where piece dot position equals pos. Oh, what did I miss here? Equals equals. Does not equal now. Okay. And we should probably actually store this world map or game data dot map dot piece equals this. And then we'll just say if piece move piece. You could also find indexes if you wanted, but and we should probably make a simple function in here called remove. Public remove. Public void add. Could actually do bool. I'll show you why in a moment. So what we'll say is if pieces, oh right, vector to int pieces dot find piece where piece dot position equals pos. I keep doing equals when it should be equals equals. Yeah. What are you complaining about here? Oh. Again, piece. If piece. So if piece, which is, or it's not letting me, so we'll do it that way. If piece is not equal no, then we will pieces dot remove piece and return true. Otherwise, we'll return false. And in a similar vein, vector to int pos. If it exists, or yeah, if it exists, so if it is, actually just do it the other way around. If it doesn't exist, then we will add it and return true, otherwise false. So just reverse logic. So we'll come back over here and we are going to do this and just send through position. Delete that. So if it removes it, we'll say it cleared it. Scroll down a bit. Now this time we are just checking. So we're going to want to add another function. Public bool contains occupied filled. Sure, we'll go with that. And similar idea. It'll look for it. If it finds it, it will not remove it. It'll just return true. In fact, we can just do returns this. So it will return whether or not piece does not equal null. So if there is something there, it'll return true, and if there isn't something there, which would be this one, it'll return false. So if it is occupied, it'll say it's taken, otherwise it's free. Come down a bit more. And we'll say add. If it can add it, we will do so. And if it couldn't, we will complain. I believe that's everything. And that should make this JSON much happier. Let's see if we have any more errors floating around. So no errors. And then if we go over and look at game data, we now can see the world map is serializable even without any special tricks. So we're going to click in, we're going to try and drag one around, let go of it. We see that it has been added to position 0, 0. That seems sketchy. Let's see. Okay, so it's not adding the position right. Let's see here. Oh. Yeah, I'm not supposed to be adding it that way. So this one's fine. This one's fine. So what's happening is it is adding 0, 0, what am I not seeing? Oh, because that is not serializable, I suspect. What did we end up calling those things? Map piece? Sure, sure. I won't worry about that for now, but... Or will I? Question for the ages, frankly. I guess we could do game objects, or... Yeah, that's fine. Game objects. Or we don't even need to know that. We'll come back to that in a moment. The big thing we need to fix is the adding. So, it checks to see if it exists. If it doesn't, it adds it. And it should be adding the position and the object itself, which is the current ploppable. Ah, but that's not included in here. Ah, map piece is fine. I think it's fine for now. That. And then over in the input controller, we need to update, or sorry, in the map. Okay. So we will open up game data to look at it, give it a clear. Drop it down, negative 2.6, that's correct. Lift it, took it out, drop again, negative 2.4, that's correct. Lift, and drop, negative 1, okay. And then we go over to the save and load. And again, I forgot to... And we hit save, we can now see that it is actually serializing the data. Currently, it's only serializing the positional data, because, again, interfaces cannot be seen in the inspector. So when we think about that, what we need to do is we actually need to track the type of thing that is being placed more so than the specific transform itself. So... because that's all the data you need in order to place it, right? Thing dot... because as long as you know... Let's see, what's it complaining about here? Oh, it's because I changed the name. If I know it's a green, like a grass square, I don't need to have the transform of that specific grass square sent to me. I just need to know that that's the kind of thing that I will be, that I will be generating at a later date. And that'll be serializable. So we will go back to the game data. And as we can see now, we see the actual types. So we'll save, press play. Drop it down. We can see it's a terrain piece. Obviously, we would want something more specific than that. There'd be a subtype to types. So you have terrain and then grass, terrain, snow, grain. Yeah. Grab this one, drop it down. And then when we go over to the save and load, which I still haven't added the game data to when it's not running. Save, and we can see the position and the plop type, which I may switch to a string just because you could change the enum order at a later date and really mess things up. But we'll see. As it stands, I think for the actual loading process, I will come back to that at a later date because I might go get a drink or take a walk or something. But that gives you an idea of sort of the process of smacking things together and seeing what works. And it's also give me some time to think about it and see if there's anything I want to change. Next step, next video, assuming I do it on video, is the actual loading process. What would happen is it would, obviously we do need to get rid of these ones that I just have in the scene, but it would iterate through that list that we created of those pieces, and it would place one of the correct type at each spot on the screen. And the way that we will draw for the saving and loading when we go to do that is I'll probably make a little debug window where I can click a button and it'll make one of these squares somewhere on the screen that is not currently occupied. Nothing complicated. But yeah, that'll be for next time. So thank you for watching here, and it'll be on YouTube. Thank you for watching there as well, and have a good day.